Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I am doing the Writers Are Weird tag. I am not sure who the original tag creator or tag creators is or are of this video because my internet's being mean. But Dane of Dane Reads tagged me, and so I'm gonna do it. If you didn't know, I'm a writer. I currently have 4 books out, 3 of which are part of the Our Doris series, Our Doris, Indisputably Doris, and Doris Ahoy, and my 4th book is the start of a cozy crime series entitled An Heir to Murder. Links are in the description. Help me pay my rent. Let's just start with the questions. Do you have bizarre internet searches? If so, what's the weirdest one? Way back when, I was about 17 years old, and I was trying to write my cozy crime novel even then. If you've read An Heir to Murder, then you might recognise some semblance of the scene I was planning. But basically, my detective was going to arrive in a barn and discover a man had been hanged by a noose made out of sheep wool, because I was going to link it to sheep rustling and farming. Therefore, I was searching how strong wool was, the integrity of that strength, but I did actually ask Google whether wool could be used to create a noose. Eventually, I just decided that if you were going to kill someone, you wouldn't go to the trouble of making an entire flaming noose out of wool, which, you know, you'd probably have to knit that. You aren't going to go to all that trouble just to get your revenge, are you? So, common sense Charlie kicked in and decided, I'm sorry, younger Charlie, that might have been an interesting idea, but just stick with reality for a bit. 2. Do you write people you know and dislike into your story as villains or dumb people to kill off? Not anymore. There are definitely aspects of people I know in characters that have appeared in my fiction. Primrose Valentine in An Heir to Murder, she's very much influenced by someone I know who called everyone love and had an extremely positive outlook on life and would switch everything to the positive. There is Nordic walking mentioned in this book because I knew of a Nordic walker and someone who ran that. The only time that I ever included someone I knew and disliked at the time as a villain was actually a friend of mine back when we were in high school. So yeah, I'm talking like I was 15 or 16 getting some sort of really petty revenge. And we'd had this falling out, and I am a pessimist. I was a pessimist even then, always looking for the bad in things. And that's why me and this friend got on, because they also happened to be a pessimist. We hung around with each other, and then something big happened whilst we were in our first year of sixth form. We had a falling out, and I wrote an entire conversation that they'd had into a urban fantasy novel I was writing at the time, and it ended with them being turned into a vampire. 3. Does personal hygiene sometimes come second to writing? Yes! This is the same for every writer, I think. There obviously are times when I'm feeling too grubby, and I have found that sometimes if I'm very businesslike and I get up in the morning early and I shower and I treat writing like a job and I just sit down at my computer ready at 9 o'clock and I start typing, I can get more work done than if I'm just slobbing about being all slovenly. However, when I was working really fast on An Heir to Murder, which is included in a writing blog from 2 years ago, and I will leave a link somewhere, there were days when, and you'll see it in the video, I was just putting my hat on in the middle of summer and typing away. Personal hygiene was not at its best, and there were times where I was like, well, as long as I've brushed my teeth, we're doing okay. 4. Do you go on baby name websites to help you name your characters? I used to. And this is where me and Dane actually had a similar answer, because he said how he now just looks at his books, picks out a surname and uses that. And I have done that in most of my books now. I just look at my shelves, pick what I think is a common name off there and use it. But I did used to use the baby name thing because it was back when a certain writer had so much meaning behind her characters' names, and so many people were putting these meanings there that I felt like every name had to mean something. But that fast changed when I was writing Our Doris, and I just wanted everything to sound normal. I didn't even think about Doris's daughter's name. She's called Angela because I simply wanted to include a name, and that's what was in my head at the time. Theo, didn't think about that name. did not think about any characters' names in that, which is why in the first draft of Indisputably Doris, I had to change the names of 4 characters because every single character was called Alan. And if those 4 characters had all been the same one character, I would have a gay farmer whose wife had left him for an Audi salesman from Tunbridge Wells. 5. Do you have a list of actors and actresses that would play your characters if there was an adaptation made? No. People ask me this question all the time. Who can you see playing your characters? It's something that has never come into my head. I never think about my books being adapted. I self-publish. I can never see that being a thing. Sometimes, and I won't lie about this, I have worried when I've seen that certain things are going to be on television, wondering whether it might have been stolen from something that I wrote. It's a big fear I always have that someone might plagiarise, but I think that every writer has that fear. I do not think about my stories being adapted. I don't think about the characters that will play them. I think it'd be very difficult anyway because most of my books have older characters, so you need really good actors and they'd have to be older, and we all know what happened with Last of the Summer Wine in the end. Maybe if it was being adapted in a Last of the Summer Wine type style and it was more about all of the characters, yeah, I have never considered actors. But have you thought that about my books? Do you have anyone in your mind that you think could play my characters? Let me know. 6. Have you ever stared at a stranger because they look like one of your characters? It's quite a few years ago now. I saw someone and they looked exactly like Doris, and I had this moment where I questioned whether I was hallucinating. I just wondered whether stress had finally got to me and I was hallucinating that Doris was walking around my shop. The perm, the height, the attitude, the shoulder pads, everything was there in this one woman. But that's very easy because Doris is basically a caricature of all northern women. 7. Do you talk to yourself to help work through scenes? If so, where do you talk to yourself? I do. I think most of us talk to ourselves because we don't want to give too much away to anyone who might read the book. 8. While writing, do you make the expressions your characters are making? I'm not sure about this one. I know that people can definitely tell when I'm very deep into writing because I'm in something of a bubble and I'm so involved in it that I'm hunched over and I'm sort of in my own world, and if anyone tries to penetrate that bubble, I become very angry because I've been pulled out of something. I couldn't answer that question. I can't see my own face. Do you think I'm getting a mirror out and watching myself just for your benefit? Jog on. 9. Do you ever practice answering interview questions in case you make it big? I haven't made it big, but I have had interview questions in the past, and trust me, there is no point doing this. So yes, I have practiced answering interview questions, and I do have stock answers ready because I've been interviewed a few times now. Over 5 years, it's going to happen. I do question and answer sessions at the end of every single one of my readings, and a lot of these same questions came up, so it just helped to have a stock answer in place for that question. However, I will reference the interview that I did with Dane a few weeks ago, in which he was asking me questions that I should have had stock answers to, but some of them were unexpected, which was a good sign of an interview. Basically, I didn't know we'd talk about booktube so much, and so I had to think a bit. And also, I can become incredibly sarcastic, as I mentioned before, so I have to watch myself that I don't do that, because sometimes my sarcasm isn't noticed. I have a very dry form of wit. I've practiced interview questions, I've had interviews, I've had question and answers before, and if you are a writer, you're going to have done this and you're going to want stock answers in place, because if you don't, it can really throw you off track. 10. Do you have a soundtrack and or playlist for your book or scenes from your book? No. And I blame Stephanie Meyer and Twilight for this. Basically, we all know that she used to include a playlist at the back of all her books, and then all these other people came along and were like, this is the playlist for this book, this influenced this scene, and that's great, but I don't do that. I used to listen to certain albums for every single book when I was still just working on young adult fantasy. The entirety of one young adult book was written to Funhouse by Pink. I can remember there was one song on that album that made me realise that I wanted to shoot a character. So there was a lot of dramatic music that I'd come up with great ideas for what my characters would do in this situation, but the entirety of the album Ashes by Kyla LaGrange inspired scenes in my head for the Selkie novel that I never wrote. I tend not to have a soundtrack or a playlist, especially considering I'm writing about older characters now, so I tend to just listen to the music that makes me feel creative, and I've talked about that in another video. But that's all the questions answered. There is one person I could tag who Dane didn't tag, and that's Emma of Emma Rosen Books. So I'm tagging you. If you fancied purchasing any of my books, then links are in the description. As aforementioned, you could help me pay my rent this month. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and getting to know more about the intricacies of my writing life. And until next time, that is all. Bye.